Now, a West Clare Post Office is set to reopen its doors next month, just months after a shocking robbery that left its postmistress injured and the local community shaken. Now, in a sign of resilience and recovery, Carrigaholt Post Office will resume service from the 18th of May with a strong outpouring of local support behind it. I've been speaking with Luke Aston, who's on the committee tasked with bringing Carrigaholt Post Office back, about the Post Office's journey back and what this reopening means for the local community. Luke, thanks very much for joining us on the show.
You're very welcome, Alan.
It must be a great sense of, be it satisfaction, relief, joy in the community there in Carrigaholt with the news that the post office is going to reopen on the 18th of May.
Yes, there's been a big demand for it. Yeah, we've probably talked before about the GoFunding that we had and a fantastic response we had to that. And I think that showed the appetite that there was for a post office in Carrigaholt. And we're reopening it with the addition of some extra services that will be hopefully make the peninsula and Carrigaholt a little bit easier to live in.
Yeah, maybe before we get on to the efforts involved in bringing it back, tell us a bit about the extra services that it's going to be providing. So it's returning, but bigger and better than ever by the sounds of it.
It's in a new building, in the same building, but in a new room. After the unfortunate instances of multiple attempts at robbery and then the actual physical robbery, the post office wanted us to put in a far more secure room if they were going to have a post office there, and carry the sort of services that they have to carry. So we were left with the dilemma of how we do this, and part of it was how do we make it all sustainable into the future, and luckily we have Maura there, who's the postmaster there, and she's been a brilliant asset to it. But I think Maura is also left in the place by herself, especially in the winter, with quite exposed. So we thought a better way to make the whole thing more viable and to have a bit of chance of more company for Maura in her workplace, we would try and open a community shop as well at the same time. And we went and had a look at a few examples of that, and we're inspired by it. And so we are going to open with a small grocery, come craft, come maybe fishing, bit of fishing tackle, and a post office in the square in Carrigaholt.
So it sounds like there'd be extra services there, but I'm sure Maura McKiernan, the postmaster, will very much appreciate the extra attention and extra detail when it comes to safety measures, given what she has been through.
Absolutely. It's a state-of-the-art facility, completely purpose-built. It gives Maura a very safe space to work in, and hopefully, we can have a long, instant-free post office in Carrigaholt as far as security is concerned.
Luke, the whole process, given, the terrible incident happened in January and we're speaking the end of April and the post office will be open in the middle of May, it's on the face of it seems like a fairly quick turnaround to, not just reopen, but reopen given it is in a different room and a different setup and so on. Does that point to the expediency of the work or just the tremendous efforts from the local community there? Because obviously it raised the fundraising campaign as well, which you spoke to us about. So you needed to get all that money before a lot of the work that's been done could actually be carried out.
Look, it's the community came together. We made a decision that we weren't going to lose this facility, and a small committee went hard at it, and we got fantastic support from lots of people, tradesmen, they have all, yourself how busy tradesmen are on the waiting time you are, but they've all bent their work schedule. Sometimes take a lot of organising, but they've bent their work schedule to fit it in. And yeah, it seems like a long time on one hand, and it's certainly, there's been days where we've had lots of bits and pieces running around to do. But overall, it's been a quick turnaround, and it's thanks to lots of people in the community and lots of the trades in the community as well.
There must be, I mentioned relief and satisfaction earlier on, relief amongst the local community that really lean on the post office for the services it provides, but also, satisfaction at the way the community can come together in a time of strife and difficulty like this, and through unified joint efforts, a really positive outcome can emerge.
Well, look at it. It absolutely does point to that. And like we've had comments in the Dáil about the small community Carrigaholt that's doing this for itself. And a lot of times the government should maybe be supplying some of these services, or certainly a lot more aware that these services there's a demand for, and this online world that we live in, there's a demand for the personal touch. And, the fact of the matter is that the government on the periphery don't support this sort of stuff, and it does take the local community to come together to do it. And I think the extent to which the community in Carrigaholt came together and the whole general Loophead area came together to support this has been brilliant, and an example both of what can be achieved and the demand for these services.
And I guess whilst the post office was and is currently closed, Luke, how much has it discommoded those who used it for whatever services they may have used it for? Because they would have had to, anyone on the Loophead Peninsula would have had to travel to Kilkee for a post office service.
Yes, Alan, and that has been, people have been, and the biggest comment we hear from people is the trouble with getting parking close to you could park outside the post office in Carrigaholt, it back there. Whereas in Kilkee, you're on the roundabouts. No disrespect, they've provided a fantastic cover in Kilkee, but it has been during the winter time, and you're coming into the summer season now in Kilkee, and you know what it's like getting parking there. So we've actually had a lot of comments from people, even elderly people that were coming from further away than the peninsula, coming back to Carrigaholt because of the ease of access to it. So, I think we've had great cover from Kilkee, and they've provided a great service for the people of Loophead, and I think everybody appreciates that. But I think just coming into the summer, the opening time is in the nick of time.
And even for certain people in the community, and you've touched on older members of the community, the local post office is another social outlet, and that they've been deprived of that for some months.
And we're hoping to develop on that, Alan. Absolutely. We're hoping it will become the social hub. The shop is going to be run to a certain extent by volunteers, and we've had a call out for that, and we've had a fantastic result for that. And that will be organised through a WhatsApp group, and we're hoping that WhatsApp group will become sort of a social hub, if you want, for a better word, for lots of things for visitors. It will be a lot of people that are retired and looking for things to do, be it a half a day a month or a day a month, or some people a day a week. They volunteered their time. And, we're hoping that this will become a social hub, and the WhatsApp group will become a social hub for lots of people that are retired into the area, people who have come back to the area, people who have lived in the area all their life. It'd be a great way of mixing and meeting each other again, So we're very excited by the concept of it going forward, and talking to some of the community shops around the country. That has been their experience, that the social hub element of it has been nearly more important in a lot of ways than the actual physical services that they supply. Now, that's outside the post office. We are very lucky to have a post office included in our service, and that's not been the experience of a lot of the other community shops around the country.
And that social outlet aspect is one that certainly we've heard mentioned on the show when we've spoken about the prevailing trend of post office closures, Luke. And I know that Councillor Tom McCallan, amongst others, who himself is a post office in Limerick, is very passionate about promoting post offices and the many services they could provide, including the social outlet aspect. Is it nice for Carrigaholt to be kind of bucking the trend in that sense, in an era where we are seeing post office closures to the detriment of local, maybe more rural communities? Your post office is actually reopening with expanded services.
Yes, it's brilliant. It's a step forward, and it's a feather in the cap for the community of Carrigaholt and the Loophead Peninsula. And, it doesn't get a mention in the Dáil because it's normal. It gets a mention in the Dáil because it's the exception to the rule. But unfortunately, that's where we live. But we're delighted as a community that it's reopening, and we're looking forward to it having being successful and bringing new life again to the square in Carrigaholt.
Well, the 18th of May can't come quick enough for the local community in Carrigaholt. Luke Aston, thank you so much for chatting about that with us here on Morning Focus.
You're very welcome, Alan, and thanks for having me on.